Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing so well today. I wanted to talk about what I wrote earlier while I was at the park. And I'm not going to read what I wrote. I'll probably share it in my post on Instagram, but I was writing about reflecting on the past and essentially how it's when I've been going through my most challenging times, especially like this year, that the only thing that was able to pull me out of those challenges was looking back to see how far I had come. And I feel this is so important to talk about because, life is always going to be full of challenges. It's always going to have difficulties and strife. And a lot of times, what happens when we're in those situations, when we're in that part of the cycle, because life is full of cycles, it's never ending. But when we're in those cycles, when we're in the thick of it, we tend to look forward, and we do so in a way that instills hopelessness within us, because we start to say, oh my gosh, I still have so much farther to go. I still am not anywhere where I want to be right now. And we do that because in those moments, we'd rather be anywhere but where we're at. Especially when it's really, really tough. We're like, oh, I would rather be anywhere else right now than in this moment. But if we have the strength to look back, to reflect at where we were maybe a month ago, where we were a year ago, maybe where we were 5 years ago, we get the opportunity to see just how many mountains we've climbed, just how many oceans we swam across. And that sort of reflection gives us a newfound appreciation, gives us the gratitude that we need in order to more gracefully move through our difficulties. I know, like I said in a video the other day, I was kind of experiencing some feelings of hopelessness. I was comparing myself to someone else, to someone like way older than me, and someone that has, just been on their journey a lot longer. And in that moment that I was comparing myself, I had forgotten everything that I had already done, everything that I had already accomplished, and instead I was focusing on where I hadn't grown yet. And when we're focusing on our lack, when we're focusing on what it is we haven't done or what it is we don't have, we're missing out on everything we do have, everything we have accomplished. And that steals the power of gratitude from us. And gratitude has the ability to shift our energy into a higher frequency, which then beckons forth more goodness in our life, more grace. So I kind of wanted to share something a little bit personal because, if I'm not sharing something personal with you, how are you going to relate to me? So something that I talked about with my grandma today was in regards to my past. It was in regards to the years before she had taken us in for custody to raise us with my grandfather. And those were the ages from being 0 to 6, And during those years, my parents and I, my mom and dad and I, and my sister spent pretty much all of our time sleeping on couches and sleeping on the floor sometimes, or mattresses on the floor. We were constantly moving. It was a very transient experience, and I realized that when I left my grandparents' house at 18, when I moved out to go live with my friend in Chico, I actually spent I think the 6 to 8 months that I lived there on a couch as well, and eventually a blow-up mattress, but in the living room, tucked away behind a couch. It was, it wasn't ideal whatsoever. I didn't have any of my own privacy, but I was somewhat comfortable with it. I was just familiar with it, I should say. Not comfortable, but I was familiar with it. And then I moved back home, and when I moved back home, I shortly after got kicked out because of a tiff that my parents and I had, and I was only out of the house for maybe a few weeks, not that long. We did fix it, and I apologized, and but when I moved back, I stayed in like the guest house, which is where my grandpa's office and garage is. So it's just like this detached portion, and I stayed there rather than in my bedroom in the house, so that there wouldn't be as much friction between us and there would be more space between us. But when I was out in that place, I left my mattress on the floor. It wasn't that I couldn't put it on a bed frame, it just, for whatever reason, I left it like that because, again, I think it was the familiarity of it, and it was unconscious, And then, well, something just popped up in my head. I'll get to it. But then after that, I moved out with a really dear friend of mine, and lived at her place for a year, and I slept on her couch in the living room for that whole year. I didn't have a bed, so I slept on her couch the whole year. And then when I moved in and had my own bedroom with some other roommates, I had my mattress on the floor for a little while until I got a box spring. And then even when I moved in the apartment that I'm living in now, for the first few months, my mattress was on the floor. And I didn't recognize the parallels between my adulthood and my childhood in that way until very, very recently. And when I say recently, I mean 2 days ago, when I was recording a video, and then in the middle of me talking, I connected the dots, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to process this. So I stopped the video, deleted that, and then put out whatever I put out. But I needed a moment to process it. And what I'm kind of recognizing is that I tied having my bed like that to the fact that we were always on the move, So I felt when I was in those past living situations, I wasn't going to be there long. I wasn't used to nesting. I wasn't used to really settling into a space during the developmental years of my childhood. And so, therefore, unconsciously or in my subconscious programming, I was used to being on the move, and I just adapted to that way of living. So I didn't even, when I was living with roommates, and it was only for 6 months, but the 6 months I lived there, I didn't do anything to personalize the space. I had a dresser that was already there, and, I had the closet. I didn't have anything hung on my wall. I didn't have any, posters or pictures. I really had nothing to make it feel like my own space. And I'm recognizing, as I'm actually talking right now, it was just because I wasn't used to that. Even though when my grandparents got custody over me, I did have that nesting space, but those first 6 years are really some of your most impactful years. And so that's just the development that I went through and kept stored within myself. So it carried on throughout my adulthood until I became more conscious of my habits and the things that weren't serving me. And it's just very interesting, but I get to look back at that, and I get to look back at just how a couple years ago I was really going through it. And when I graduated high school, I know I've talked about this before, but I just think it's important to mention that there was so much that I went through, so much darkness that I did experience, and I'm at a place in my life where I can say I've done so much on my own. I remember the years when I was going through that darkness, and I thought to myself, how will I ever be able to support myself? How will I ever be able to live on my own? I couldn't even fathom it because I was so far away from that. I couldn't even imagine having that kind of money. It just was so far from where I was. It felt unattainable, and that kept me in that spiral. But clearly I was taking some kind of steps every single day. I was doing some kind of movements, even if they were very small, and that led me to where I am now. And it's not as though I was really aware of where I was going, I just was going. And that's kind of the journey of life. You're not fully aware. I don't think you actually ever know really where you're going. You might have an idea of what your purpose is or what it is you intend on doing in this life, but even that image that you have isn't going to be exactly what transpires. You know, you're going to experience something way different than that. And I can, you know, attest to that in my own lifetime, in my own experience. My life is so different than I ever expected it to be, so different than I ever imagined it to be, and I have to say, way better than I imagined it to be, and it keeps getting better. And the more I take the time to reflect in my day, the more gratitude I find, and the more gratitude I find, the more abundance I call into my life. So this message here is just to tell you that the life is about the journey. It is not about a destination, and we don't even really arrive at a destination except, you know, physical death. And even then, I believe, you know, personally, our experience continues after that, whether that's in another realm or another plane of existence, but it continues. You know, energy doesn't cease to exist, and you don't have to be a spiritual person to believe in that fact. It doesn't just stop. So have faith that you're going somewhere and you're going exactly where you need to be going. And on the days where it rains, on the days where it pours, or it's a blizzard, you know, or it's dark, remember that the sunlight, the sunshine, is merely but a gray sky away. Okay? That is my message for you guys today. I hope it resonated. Let me know if you related to that, or if you feel inclined to share where you've grown from or how far you've come, because I really do love to hear that kind of stuff. And I know this channel is still growing, and I'm not expecting a lot of buzz around it right now, which, you know, I expect it to be a slow progress, but those few comments that I do get, those few replies that I do get, just really light me up. And if only you could see how broadly I'm smiling when I get to read them, it would probably make you feel really good about having left them. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys most likely tomorrow. Take care.